The project started now about 10 years ago when the first thoughts were put towards extending Collins Street through what was known as the number 2 goods shed. That involved cutting this vast building in half and deciding then what to do with the two ends that were left.
Obviously down in Docklands there are some fantastic buildings, some 6-star Green Star buildings, some 5-star outcomes, but they're mainly all new buildings. And what this is actually a national example of is the historic building being reused in a way that brings it into the 21st century, but also delivers energy efficiency, water saving and fantastic indoor environment quality that is going to be just so good for the occupants of the building.
Vic Urban's got a fantastic track record in sustainability. We have been introducing environmental and water initiatives into the marketplace. And so when we moved offices, we wanted to walk the talk in our own office. And so this building is a new benchmark in what is possible in heritage buildings and getting an environmental outcome at the same time.
It was built at a time when Melbourne was absolutely booming. This was the height of the post-gold rush boom in Melbourne, an enormously wealthy city, the most important city in Australia by far. And the Railways Commissioners commissioned and built this enormous goods shed.
This was the place where goods were taken off ships, put on trains and distributed across Victoria.
So you had a vast amount of material going out of the metropolis that had arrived on the Yarra and was offloaded on the wharves opposite the Customs House just near the casino, and then basically put on large freight trains and sent out to Bendigo, Ballarat, to the great goldfields boom cities.
It was a really good opportunity for the Building Commission and the Plumbing Industry Commission and Vic Urban to team up with Equiset. They are a leading Australian developer and builder.
We embarked on a journey on rejuvenating a 100-year-old railway shed into an A-grade office building, which was 5-star Green Star. And I said, absolutely.
It was a fantastic conversation because the conversation was about how we'd bring this old building to life, but how we'd do it environmentally.
Every day we're reading in the papers about climate change. People are very concerned about greenhouse gas. People are very focused on what is going to be part of the solution. And I'm really excited about the fact that the building sector can provide immediate benefits in relation to reducing energy, saving water and producing fantastic outcomes that are going to be ultimately part of the solution when it comes to greenhouse gas reduction.
In terms of sustainability, some of the key attributes of sustainability is looking at the energy use of a building and trying to reduce the energy use, the energy that actually drives the lighting, the air conditioning and so forth.
To achieve this environmental outcome needed a considerable amount of innovation across all of the design team and the building team.
In terms of greenhouse gas reductions, the built environment is seen as the most viable, immediate source of reduction worldwide.
It certainly is a part of our business plan going forward to really embrace sustainable buildings because they're certainly a way of the future.
The commercial reality of this project is, I think, a very important part of the leadership that the project has shown, because we've been able to show that you can do it for the right price. It's no more expensive for us to be occupying this building compared with quite a straightforward office block.
The challenge from a building point of view, I think, has been, as with any old building, the fact that half the time you don't know exactly what you're going to find. And the process of unwrapping this building and investigate it revealed a whole lot of problems.
One is dealing with the foundations. Everyone knows in construction, starting with good foundations is critical.
The shed is actually a shed that floats on mud. It's sitting on timber piles and timber platforms, essentially, much like ancient cathedrals in the UK.
There were elements of the building that were no longer stable and that needed to be re-supported and dealt with in other ways.
When you start off in a typical office building, you basically build from the ground floor and up. And you get all your trades and so forth working behind it as you go from the ground floor up. One of the challenges of the shed was we're actually working from end to end. It was very fiddly for our team because of the use to go through and actually throw an enormous amount of manpower behind it was certainly not easy to do because it was a very tight spot.
What wasn't normal about this project was that it was a heritage building. So at every corner, the things that the team would have normally done delivering an environmental outcome, they found themselves somewhat constrained. For example, the building envelope, that is the shape of the building, couldn't be changed because it's a heritage building.
The roof structure itself is a combination of cast iron and wrought iron framing. It's designed as a 19th century roof structure. It doesn't meet any of the contemporary code requirements, so that there is an issue for the engineers to look at to determine how to address the capacity of the roof to function now, carry new loads, new equipment.
The roof, as you can imagine, was a 100-year-old slate. We embarked on a process of removing all the existing slate because the slate had become quite brittle over time.
The works primarily have focused on things like getting the roof fixed, getting the gutters installed, painting timberwork, restoring brickwork, removing old paint off brickwork, repointing, and to a degree rebuilding. There was a major train accident in the 20th century where the northern end of the shed was in part demolished when a train ran into it, and part of the project has involved rebuilding that end of the shed.
I think the architects and the engineers have done a fantastic job in being really creative about the spaces. My objective from day one was to create a very open office environment, which actually was assisting in changing the culture of the two organisations.
So the three defining elements in the renovation of the goods sheds are the lantern building, which is really a circulation engine which links the elevated height of Collins Street down to the Bourke Street level. There's the Galleria space, which runs the entire distance from Collins Street to Bourke Street, so huge volume. And then there's the northern end, the landscape pavilion, which integrates the entry into Bourke Street. The building is called a lantern building because it's just a very simple stretched sheet of glass. And that's why it has that very big wide eaves, the deep eaves, if you like, that protects that clear glass, which is just stretched down over the end of the building.
What we did in designing the building was put all of the workstations to the edges, and so right down the centre of the building, that double height space down the centre of the building, are all the communal spaces.
And we thought, what about this grand Galleria space as the model for an office? So you have a central street, 12 metre high, volume, 19 metre spans. When we were trying to get the building working properly, it really required some areas that are a little bit more normal, so we inserted mezzanines into the wings, and then bridges across the middle of the space. And what the bridges do is they connect visually one side to the other side, so you can have 6,000 square metres of office space intimately connected within a short walk. So the northern end of the building is obviously, preserves intact the current state of the building with simple architectural elements, the stretched horizontal plane of the roof. And that roof has a series of louvers that open it up so that the sun comes through directly over the entry and directs the visitors in through the front door. And a series of landscape objects, feature columns and a nice big landscape wall. So it's a way of stitching up the end of the building, preserving it, giving it functionality, but not trying to rebuild it in the image of the original building. To turn on traditional thinking and try to air condition the whole space just made no sense. So we've employed a series of quite innovative, technical treatments to the air conditioning system that make it work really well.
The trench actually runs the entire length of the shed, and all the services that sit on the plant room on the lantern building run down the entire length of the shed and break out to smaller services areas. The siphonic system enables us to capture the rainwater and store it in an underground water tank, which is in excess of 60,000 litres.
The stormwater system actually comes down through the middle of the column and then links up to the stormwater system below the floor. So part of the one of the interesting things in the rebuilding of it was to preserve its stormwater system inside a concealed cast iron column for irrigation into the landscape and for other purposes, rather than just dump it back into the stormwater system.
For many years now, the Building Commission and the Plumbing Industry Commission has been advocating the merits of energy efficiency and water saving. So I'm really excited that for the first time we're now able to be in a building that is an example of best practice when it comes to energy efficiency.
The recycled content of steel in the building is effectively dealing with the existing structure that was already in place and working around it.
The steel was actually, in quite good condition. So we developed a painting system that would both protect the steelwork through time and stop all the oxidation and corrosion that was actually in play. If we're going to modernise the buildings of our city and bring them into the future in a way that uses less energy, that makes our cities more sustainable, it is a prototype in place, if you like. that has all the most difficult preconditions. So if we can solve those issues in situ in the goods shed and achieve a 5-star Green Star result, then really there's no excuse for anyone else.
We've taken this old railway shed and converted it into an office. And not only have we converted it into an office, we've shown that we can do that with an environmental outcome. And so what we're being able to do in this project is show Melburnians, the industry, other office tenants, what is possible with our old building stock. And so for me, that's a very satisfying outcome of this project.
The technologies that we've actually implemented into Goods Shed North are world's best practice. And certainly the outcomes that we're hoping to achieve will be a demonstration in the marketplace that not only is this achievable in new buildings, but also in the adaptive reuse of what is a great historic building here in Melbourne.